Theirs was going to be a celestial love story. It didn't matter that George Hyatte was a convicted criminal, someone who hadn't shied away from committing aggravated robbery and aggravated assault. For the first time in her life, Jennifer Forsyth felt seen. She was no longer alone, and she had to make sure that nothing was going to stand between the two of them, not even prison. They were willing to sacrifice anything and anyone for their love. And so they did back in 2005 in what was dubbed the Kingston Courthouse shooting. This is the story of Jennifer and George Hyatte. It was morning on August 9, 2005, and the court hearing had just come to an end. Jennifer Forsyth Hyatte was ready to act. It was now or never. She either did it or not. But the woman knew not taking this chance wasn't really an option. She wanted to free George, her husband, and finally get to live the life she deserved. Jennifer was so sick of living for others, and it was high time she lived for herself. At 31 years old, the woman had already been married twice before she met George Hyatte. Jennifer had 3 children, 2 boys and a girl, and a long and messy list of relationships. As she sat in her blue Ford Explorer, watching the column portico of the Roane County Courthouse in Kingston, Tennessee, Jennifer knew there was nothing that she wouldn't do for George. Her gun was at the ready, the engine was running, and her heart wanted only one thing: to spare her husband a life in prison, away from her, away from freedom. A month before, the woman called her father, who was a former police officer, trying to convince him to give her a handcuff key. When the man refused, Jennifer devised another plan. Jennifer never had it easy, so she had to learn to be resourceful. Her first memory was of her parents' divorce. By the time she turned 15, Jennifer was no longer the little girl who loved horses. She was now someone who loved alcohol and drugs, someone whom older men saw as fair game. The summer before her senior year of high school, Jennifer met someone. When he asked her the big question, Jennifer said yes. The couple had 3 children, but children aren't enough to mend something that's inherently wrong, dangerous, and broken. Their marriage was filled with arguments, drug abuse, and heavy drinking. It didn't last. After another failed marriage and a few more affairs, Jennifer decided to turn her life around, so she took her kids and moved to Tennessee. In early 2004, Jennifer earned a diploma as a licensed practical nurse and took a nursing job at the Northwest Correctional Complex in Tiptonville, Tennessee. That's where she met him. Sure, she had had plenty of affairs, but George Hyatte was different. Jennifer had known it the very instant their eyes had locked for the first time. He was her soulmate, the perfect half, the one thing she'd been missing all these years. The two of them fell in love, but not everybody was a fan of this lovesick behavior. 5 months after getting the job and meeting George Hyatte, Jennifer was fired after sneaking food into the prison for him. People couldn't understand why on earth a seemingly respectable woman with a good job would risk it all for a prisoner like George Hyatte. While Jennifer Hyatte stayed put in the car waiting, George Hyatte was pleading guilty to a robbery charge in the courthouse. But then the courthouse hearing was over, and it was time to act. Jennifer was ready, her eyes glued to the building's entrance. And then she saw George, her beloved husband, descending the few steps between him and the van that was going to take him back to prison, away from her love. In 2005, George Hyatte was a 34-year-old and serving a 35-year sentence for aggravated robbery and aggravated assault. His flirting with criminal life started when he was only a child, and at 17, Hyatte started racking up charges for burglary, theft, armed robbery, and striking an officer. By the time he was 21, he was already a repeated offender with a known tendency towards violence. But the man was also a smooth talker and a bit of a ladies' man. In November 2004, Jennifer and George applied for permission to marry. They were wed on May 20th, 2005. Now, a few months later, on August 9th, 2005, George was shackled and flanked by 2 guards, making his way toward the prison van. Jennifer didn't see the guards as 2 living, breathing people. Instead, she saw them as 2 obstacles preventing her happiness. She pulled up to the Tennessee Department of Correction transport van, and then she jumped out of the blue Ford Explorer, holding her gun firmly in her hand. Her husband George was stunned to see her, but he had put 2 and 2 together quickly and started encouraging her straight away. "Shoot him!" George Hyatte yelled out. One of the guards, 56-year-old Wayne Cotton Morgan, grabbed his own gun, but it was no use. Jennifer Hyatte shot him 3 times in the abdomen. The man fell to the ground. He was dead. The other guard managed to shoot Jennifer, but in the meantime, George had made it to the car. The couple sped away before they could be apprehended. Jennifer drove despite her injury. Maybe it was the adrenaline, or maybe it was the ecstatic feeling of being close to her husband, but she knew she couldn't stop for any reason. They were so close. Way too close to risk destroying everything she'd worked for only because of a small gunshot wound. She drove the Ford to a nearby Subway sandwich shop. The couple then abandoned the car and got into a golden Chevrolet minivan Jennifer had stolen from one of her patients in Hendersonville, Tennessee. They drove away and only stopped 4 hours later at a Lowe's in Florence, Kentucky. They needed a hacksaw to free George Hyatte from the burdensome shackles. The couple then rented a room in a motel about a mile away. They spent the night there, finally together. Finally free. Jennifer Hyatte took antibiotics and pain meds in order to cope with her gunshot wound. But once morning came, the couple knew they had to move again. They were still too close for comfort, too exposed. They were in danger. In the meantime, Jennifer dyed her brown locks black. They took a cab ride to Columbus, Ohio. At the start of the journey, they handed a cab driver 2 $100 bills and started pleading with him. They wanted the man to book them a room in a hotel under his name. But Mike Wagers, the driver, was suspicious about the two. The pair told him they were headed to an Amway convention, which further deepened his suspicions. In Wagers' experience, Amway representatives loved talking about the MLM company they worked for, but these two were really quiet. Still, he dropped them off at the destination. The couple checked into America's Best Value Inn in Columbus, Ohio. They were at ease, smoking Marlboros and munching on snacks and Mexican foods. But their happiness was about to turn sour. Once Mike Wagers got home in Kentucky, he started playing video games. As he was playing, a friend of his told him about the fugitives and the fact that the police had just found an abandoned golden Chevrolet minivan. That's when something clicked for Wagers. He called the police straight away, tipping them about the couple's location. The Hyattes were in their room when the phone rang. Jennifer picked it up and was met with the voice of U.S. Marshal Nikki Ralston. Ralston told Jennifer to get her husband, George, exit the hotel room, and follow the directions of the officers, who would be to their immediate right. They were surrounded. It was the evening of August 10th, 2005. Once the couple got out of their room, Jennifer started pleading with the officers. She asked them not to hurt her husband. "Baby, baby, it'll be okay. It'll be okay," she kept hollering at George Hyatte. Both of them were immediately taken to jail. Jennifer Hyatte pleaded guilty to first-degree murder on September 17th, 2007. She was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. She is currently serving her sentence at the Tennessee Prison for Women in Nashville. While in her initial cell in Ohio, Jennifer wrote several letters, but all of them were confiscated. She called those 2 days on the run with her husband the best of her life. George Hyatte pleaded guilty to all charges on March 9th, 2009. He also pleaded guilty to first-degree murder of the guard Wayne Cotton Morgan. He was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole.